most of the time we will find that the discussion on Tawheed is something that becoming one of the most philosophical things that we have faced, in front of us. And in our tradition, and in traditional institutions like pondok pesantren, we will face this kind of syllabus of Tawheed, Soluddin, in the condition that we have to memorize it. And memorization is very important. Kita ada what we call it as apa tu? Matan-matan tertentu, it's mutun, and most of the time in Malay world, in pondok, pesantren, traditional institutions, religious traditional institutions, we will have this kind of mutun, and the pupils and the students will have to memorize the mutun. Primary time. And most of the time mutun will compose of the nazam. I mean the syair macam tu ya. So that will make the students to be more to be equipped with the words, the concept in that kind of rhythm, nazam. So let us go to the Tawheed and its application of for thoughts and life. What has been highlighted by Faruqi, and what we as the member of the Muslim Harakah or the Islamic movement has benefited from his work. Number one, most of the time I mentioned just now, conveyed to you that most of the time when we are talking about Tawheed, learning Tawheed, the methodology and the pedagogy is moves towards memorization. Yes, perhaps we will gaining the understanding after that. The first memorize first, and then comes to to have the we call it understanding through learning process. But we have to bear in mind that age and period is changing, and what have been taught in the previous centuries, maybe they still in a kind of still reasonable for us, but we have to be equipped with the new methodology of the new world, new challenges, etc. So number one, Tawheed is not merely on the books. I mean, not necessarily discussing in the books. Most of the time we are talking about Tawheed, and Tawheed is not working in the life of the Muslim, because we tend to memorize and then discussing about Tawheed, but how to implement Tawheed in your life. So that's why one of the remarkable interpretation of Tawheed that can be understood by Muslims, and most of the time told you about the Muslim Harakah, I mean Islamic movement members, from what has been discussed by Faruqi. So Faruqi trying to make it alive, to make the Tawheed to not to become one of the subjects that has become the debate and discussion in the books and the arena, the realms of academics, or the realms of education institution, but in practical life. That's number one. Number two, Tawheed, written by Faruqi, successfully challenging the challenge of current philosophical and we can current philosophy and also the current thoughts. I mean, most of the time from the Western world. He trying to compare between philosophy and Western philosophy, and also what should Muslims implement by their own tradition. So they have their own tradition, they have their own thought. And in Islam, in Quran, the God has put Muslim as one of the the ideal ummah. Ya, ummatan wasata litakunu syuhada 'alan nas. Muslim, and as implementation of man and a human group that will becoming the mediation groups, becoming the witness to all of mankind, all groups. Because of that, Faruqi is now trying to make us aware that you have the recipe, you have all the ingredients to become the ummatan wasata litakunu syuhada 'alan nas. But why Muslim has become the prey of all groups of mankind all around the globe? Kita menjadi mangsa kepada kelompok-kelompok yang lain. Ini satu persoalan. Because of that, number two, Tauhid has giving us what we call it as the courage to come back, to uphold our principle back to the strength that we have before. Number three, when we talk about Tauhid and also Faruqi, one of the most interesting ideas that I found is the idea of taskhir, the idea of taskhir. Because when he talk about Tauhid, there are certain principles. Yes, we know Tauhid is unity, oneness of God. But oneness of God has no meaning if we just talking about God himself. Yes, it is important, but God has based out to us Sharia. And Sharia is not for God, because Subhanallah, Allah is the Almighty. He has nothing to do with our submission. So if we submit to God, Allah is still great. If we do not submit to God, Allah is still great. No? So that means Sharia that has been tanzil, that has been based out to the people, to the mankind, to makhluk, is not for God, but for ourselves. So it is when Faruqi discuss about Tauhid, the oneness of God, it has something to do with man and also with the creatures. That's why previously when we learn in class during UIA time about Tauhid, when our lecturer come up with these principles of Tauhid mentioned by Faruqi, Tauhid is oneness of God, but it comes to have the principle of duality. Oneness but duality. What does it mean by duality in Tauhid? So most of the time it is about tanzih, about to mensucikan Tuhan. It means yes, God is God. God is the wajibul wujud. But other than God, mashallah, is creatures, including ourselves as man. We are the creatures, the makhluk, and God is the khaliq. there is the differentiation about makhluk and khaliq, and the duality is there. We have to aware and beware in mind that we are the creatures, we are the people, the makhluk, the creatures that need God. Yeah. Because there are also the discussion about God in philosophy. Some of the philosophers tends to perceive God as Rob. Yes, we are perceiving God as Rob, but Rob without ilah. I mean, God as one of the higher wujud existence that created the world and also the creatures and left them. So this is one of the challenges in philosophy. Some of them also regarded God as trying to understand Tawheed, God, and also Takdir as what has become central in the understanding of Takdir by groups like Qadariyah and Jabariyah. This Tazkir, into the scene. So how do we perceive God, and how do we perceive God willing, and also the Takdir, very central in Islamic thought. So one of the principle of Tawheed highlighted by Faruqi is the superiority of man and the malleability of natures. This is the most, to me, the most interesting, because he tried to uphold the principle of Khalifa. Man, yes, man is one of the creatures that's been created by God in this world. But man has a position superior to others in terms that man has been bestowed by God as becoming the vicegerents, the deputies of God, to make the imarah of the world. So that's why man has the capacity of superiority, and the nature has this kind of features. Malleability can be manipulated. The natures can be manipulated by humankind, like that. But the superiority of man has not been given just like that. So man can doing whatever they want, but it comes with obligation. It comes with taklif. So this is the obligation of man as a vicegerents of God in this world, to ensure that yes, we have the choice, we have the kasab, iktisab, we have the capacity to choose what we want to do, but it is not a privilege. It comes with obligation. It comes with something that will be asked by God. What we are going to, what we have done in this world, what we have been chose, what is our choice in this world. That's why in Quran there is ayat Zahara al-fasada fil barri wal bahri bima kasabat aydin nas. The destructions that happen in the world, in the ocean, sea, and the sea, and also at the land, is actually because of the it has been caused by human acts. the action of man. So when we are talking about Tawheed, about submission to God, understanding God, oneness of God, it is not per se talking about understanding God and just submit and khalas, but it has something to do with the obligation. This is what Faruqi means by implication. Tawheed has its implication. Yes, submit to God, becoming the devoted, humble abdi, and also becoming one of the principle of life, day-to-day life. How do we have the moral obligation based on the principle of Tawheed? But Tawheed also give us the strength to make our life to become more advanced, the strength to realize that we are the vicegerent of God. It is not about ourselves. It is not about just myself, my family. No, it is about the world. Because God created the world, and becoming the deputy of God, vicegerent of God in this world, that means we have to not to take the God's job, but to have this kind of task, to develop the world, not just develop ourselves. That's why Malik bin Nabi, when talking about human society, has the differentiation about society and also human group. Yes, we are living in the groups. Men are living in group, but the group per se is not society unless it acquire the quality of society. So, like us, human being, we may live in a human group, but the human group who have the objective, who have this kind of thinking towards driving the human being, the human life into advancement, it will become society because they have the objective. So I think the last one, when we talk about Tawheed and implication for thoughts and life, we will find that Faruqi is trying to enjoin Muslim to becoming the ummatan wasata litakunu syahada, the khair ummatan khairu ummah, the best ummah, the best group ever, because it is something that a need for Muslims. We once has achieved that, stage, stage of civilization, as becoming a group that has becoming a role model for another groups of people all around the globe, and becoming the Qiblah of civilization. So at the point of time, because of that is the nature of this world, and because of the cause, because of this is something that we have to bear in mind. We are climbing the stage of civilization because of certain precondition, and we go down into the worst scenario, the worst situation because of the condition also. So now is the time to look back at that conditions on how do we climbing back to the new era of civilization, the new advancement of human life, the new epoch of Muslim world. And it is not about Muslim per se, because Muslim civilization is not about Muslim per se. It is about humanity. That is why Faruqi is trying to enjoin us to come back to the conditions that we need to perceive, we need to make it into actions, we need to make it as a programmatic, actions. It has to be programmed. It is not like up to the takdir. If takdir said that we are going back to the epoch of higher civilization, so we go, no, because it has its condition. It is a possibility. Because of that, one of, we call it as a principle that has been highlighted by Faruqi is the world is teleological. It is purposive. It has a purpose, and men need to serve the purpose. So that's for the time being.
Thank you very much. Terima kasih Saudara Fazril atas perkongsian tentang especially dalam buku Ismail Faruqi, Islam, Tauhid and its implication. Satu benda yang penting juga untuk diringkaskan apa yang dibincang oleh Fazril tadi adalah tentang peranan khalifah lah, peranan khalifah dan juga kenapa manusia di dunia ni dijadikan, diciptakan. Benda ni perlu dilihat bahawa dia tujuan kenapa tauhid tu kita faham bukan untuk semata-mata kerana untuk Tuhan, tapi sebenarnya untuk bagi manusia faham kenapa diciptakan. Sebab benda ni sangat penting terutama dalam zaman pasca normal, in this post normal times. Banyak berlaku kita kata doubt ataupun kita kata keraguan dalam kenapa kita diciptakan. Dalam ini memberi kesan kepada mental health, memberi kesan kepada hubungan kekeluargaan. Jadi saya ingat kefahaman yang sebenarnya tentang khalifah ni sangat penting untuk dijadikan kita kata panduan pada terutamanya orang-orang muda zaman sekarang, supaya sentiasa tahulah kenapa manusia ni, kenapa kita diciptakan. Benda ni satu kita kata aspek kita kata ni lah benda yang kuat kenapa Islam ni selalu dicari-cari oleh orang, sebab kita berjaya jawab soalan tu. Soalan kenapa kita diciptakan. Satu benda yang agama lain agama lain tak betul-betul settle benda tu. Jadi tanpa membuang masa, saya jemput Saudara Hilman untuk memberikan pandangan beliau tentang pemikiran Ismail Faruqi. Silakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. I think I would like to start this discussion by going into al-Faruqi's background a bit, because I think we don't do enough justice to who he is and what's his major contributions and how does that shape his thought. Of course, we know he was a Palestinian-born scholar, lived most of his academic life and contribute mostly in throughout his life in the United States. He had 2 master's degrees and a PhD degree. The PhD title is Justifying the Good Metaphysics and Epistemology of Value. I think the other day I talked to Professor Jassi Audah, who also read about this dissertation, and to his mind, Faruqi's remarkable contributions, especially in the realm of Maqasid Sharia, is how he talked and explicate about Maqasid Sharia in Cultural World of Atlas at a 1 paragraph or 1 pager at a time where it is almost non-existent, the discussion of Maqasid Sharia in English at that time. Of course, we refer to Arabic. It has gone long before Al-Ghazali, Al-Juwayni, and then Ash-Shatibi in 14th century, and then Maqasid Sharia Islamiyah by who wrote the Tafsir Tahrir wa Tanwir, Sheikh Ibn Ashur, 20th century. But al-Faruqi apparently becomes one of the earliest to introduce this discourse in English. And that's, I think, probably why also IIIT takes this to become one of their themes in publishing the books. You can see most of IIIT books, some of them has this Maqasid al-Sharia theme, where they translate major works in Maqasid, like the one written by Ar-Raisuni, the PhD thesis, on Ash-Shatibi, and even Jasi Audah book was published by IIIT, even abridged, and others. But we know he was a visiting professor at University of Chicago's Divinity School for 1 year. And then he taught at Syracuse University as associate professor for 4 years. And then at Temple University, this is where probably he met with Professor Alatas between 1968 to 1986. So that's probably the longest time he spent in one particular university. And then in 1980, he founded IIIT with a few other colleagues. And throughout his life, he has written more than 100 articles and produced 25 books at least. Now, we know as a great scholar and thinker, you don't, your thought is already valuable and you don't have to narrate others' thoughts, so to speak. But al-Faruqi apparently becomes such a scholar that he translates work from Arabic into English. One of them is that by the name of Khalid, Muhammad Khalid, from here we start, or from in Arabic, min huna nabda. Min huna nabda. Why? I think PM mentioned this a lot of time, right? Min huna nabda, and then it was responded by Sheikh Muhammad Al-Ghazali, min huna na'lam. Al-Faruqi translated as our beginning in wisdom. So it's a dialogue. So Faruqi doesn't really translate for the mere of translation. He wants to convey something about this interesting dialogue between these two scholars. Apparently, Khalid Muhammad Khalid is deemed to be a westernized scholar who uphold Western modernity. And Muhammad Al-Ghazali responded by saying, probably along the same line like what our brother just mentioned just now, how modernity or even development must be built from within this culture, from within our own epistemology, from within our own knowledge and identity. And it does not do to copy and paste from other modules. Of course, Syazwan has mentioned about Islamization of knowledge in 1980, but the discussion has started way before that. Even if you want to discuss about the origin of Islamization, you don't, because we had debate. You don't stop with Faruqi or Alatas. You go where even you can say, generally speaking, Prophet Muhammad Islamized a lot of things, right? And then Al-Farabi and Ibn Sina Islamized a lot of metaphysics, Greek metaphysics, Aristotelian metaphysics, and Neoplatonism. But if you're referring to a particular system, yes, or particular ontological scheme, so to speak, of Islamization of knowledge in the modern context, where educational institution is involved, then these are probably the prominent names to be discussed, besides also Marhum Professor Kamal Hassan. Then Islamization of knowledge, and of course, with his background in Palestine, he apparently becomes somewhat engrossed with comparative religion. He wrote about Usul as-Sahyuniyya fi Din al-Yahudi, the origins of Zionism in Judaism. And he also wrote Christian ethics, apparently not available in the market anymore. This is published in 1999, but originally published in 1967 by a publisher in Netherlands, in which this book basically discuss about the development of Jesus' teachings, especially the context in which he was born, the context of the Jews at the time, which I will discuss further a bit. And then Trilogue of the Abrahamic Faith, At-Tawhid, Islam and Other Faith in 1985, The Cultural Atlas of Islam in 1986, probably the last book, and then Islam, Religion, Practice, Culture and World Order, 2012. This was published posthumously. And then a few other books written on him, most notably by Professor Imtiaz, who's now in Vietnam, and a few others published by IIIT. We know he was killed in a tragic murder in 1986 by unknown killer. Of course, he was caught, but eventually the police investigation revealed that this person has some mental issue. This mental issue usually used as a pretext to hide any real motive behind it. So we don't really know who is. It's probably a scapegoat, but there is this trend that whenever assault is being done on Muslims in the West, it will be blamed on mental health issue. Therefore, but if a Muslim was caught, there's no discussion about it. Anyway, but justice must be served, and so I think, if I'm not mistaken, he also served some punishment. It was a black, by the way, black American, and I'm not sure whether Muslim, maybe Muslim. So, Alhamdulillah, we just listened to At-Tawhid, its implications for thought and life, mostly from chapter 1, which is the crux of the book, which discuss about theology in a more critical way. When he discuss about duality, he actually alludes to wahdatul wujud, because this idea believes that God and human is one. Though if you refer to Hamzah Fansuri, or if you refer to Ibn Arabi, or Salahuddin Qunawi, or even Ahmad Sirhindi, or even Shah Waliullah Ad-Dahlawi, they probably have a variety understanding of Wahdatul Wujud. But as far as we concern, those who study Futuhatul Makkiyah or Fususul Hikam, or the major works that deal with Wahdatul Wujud, Alhamdulillah, I have the privilege to study Hamzah Fansuri, the 3 books, Asrarul Arifin, Sharabul Ashiqin, and Al-Muntahi, after I finished my undergraduate study here. And apparently what we discover is that there is no explicit mention, or at least an expression of faith, that the creature and the creator are one in essence. For that, there is no mention of that. But of course, those who probably get from secondary sources, or when you discuss this at a more general way, that is the simple way to say about this. And therefore, to do justice to those who adhere to this understanding, they never mention about the unity in essence, but rather the unity in experience, which was later elucidated by Ahmad Sirhindi, this Indian scholar, and he termed it as Wahdatul Shuhud, which is the unity of experience. You experience and feel it, the sentiment, the aura that we are being united with God. This is not alien to other religions. This has been in Buddhism as well. This concept of this concept of nirvana. This concept of nirvana, and probably in a few other archaic religions, as well. But I mean, Fansuri, even Ibn Sina, Surawardi, most of them who has attained this kind of reality, they always emphasize that it is not to be taught to the public, because we have to accept that there are degrees of understanding among people. And therefore, this kind of things, if you want to debate and discuss, is among the scholars. But if you want to speak to the public, we speak using the language of duality, of Tawheed, which is simply explain that God, creator, there is no mix between the two. You have to worship him, but of course, worship with love and care, and not as in you are worshiping like worshiping a dictator, so to speak. In this regard, I would like to digress a bit to, I read recently about this new publication by Muslim World, MWT, Muslim World Thought or something. So this publication mentioned about the new translation of Quran in English. This latest translation of Quran. No, that was in 2016 maybe. But this new translation is by No Hamim Keller. The Quran Beheld. I think probably this year or last year. I think this year was published. And so the author start, not No Hamim, but this reviewer said, why the need to have a new translation? To my best knowledge, we already have 137 English translations of the Quran. Why do you need to have a new one? So, but then when you go through the Quran Beheld, you notice one thing, which is you can say the golden mean, the best way to strike the balance between literal translation and also adhering to the grammar and the poetic language of the Quran. So, for example, in the Surah Al-Fatiha, Iyyaka na'bud. So the normal translation would be, to you we worship. Okay, unto you we worship. But No Hamim Keller translated masterfully as, to you we humbly adore. Okay, now when you go to English dictionary, and this guy demonstrated, I mean, he goes to Oxford, Merriam-Webster. Adore also has the connotations of worship. But why does not you simply use the word worship? Because when you look the verse in the context, it tries to evoke the connotations of humility. To you we worship, and to you we ask for help. So No Hamim said, unto you we humbly adore, which means there is that connotation, and this actually invokes a sense of humility when you read this translation, which basically capture more meaning of the Quran instead of the normal translation. And also he wrote about Islamic English. Syazwan wants to discuss about that later on, maybe. Okay, now I digress from duality. Okay. Now, Christian ethics is actually a significant work. This one was published without the foreword, but if you go into the original one by the one that published in Netherlands, there is a foreword by Professor Kramer, who mentioned how Faruqi actually do very deep research on Christianity and mastering the linguistic of the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, as well as the Talmud, and also the tradition, which referring to people like Augustine, people like Saint Aquinas, and Saint Anselm and others, those who the theologians of Christianity, and in fact he said probably al-Faruqi impressed them due to his research, and there is no one to his best knowledge ever say that this work is rubbish, or you see, but they honor this work and respect al-Faruqi's scholarship in this. And when you read, he actually demonstrate that from the tradition, from the Christian tradition, as well as from archaeological findings. And for us in comparative religion studies here in UIA, we were mandated to read the first chapter of this book and hadam and digest it. Because the first chapter deals about the methods of comparative religion. You know, when you go to synagogue or Buddhist temples or Hindu temples, what is the mandatory thing you do before you enter the okay.
Remove your shoes.
We remove our shoes. We leave our shoes behind. Okay. This probably becomes a bit alien to, not to say to the far west, but even if you go to Turkey, they don't really leave the shoes outside, right? And this is a Muslim country. But why do people do this probably somewhere in China or even in this region is because the same reason we do to holy sites is to pay respect. And because, of course, our shoes, we step in everywhere and there are dirt and, you know, stuff like that. And therefore we leave the dirt and negativity outside and we enter with clean feet, so to speak. So the same goes to, he said, when you are studying religion, because you cannot study any particular religion with a preconceived bias and proclivity and a particular worldview which makes or which distort your judgment towards that the creed and the sentiment and the aura of the religion. And therefore he started off by saying that there is a difference between life facts and scientific facts. If you are a scientist, you can do research in laboratories using microscopes, because these are objects that don't have life. You can manipulate the objects to your interest. But religion is something dear to people. And it is intangible, yes, but it appeals also to the emotions, to spirituality of human beings. And therefore you cannot treat religion like you treat scientific facts. There has to be a higher degree of methodology to assess religion. And therefore, he says, religion also contains this sentiment and also feelings, experience. And so he said, you have to leave your worldview and bias and your biasness aside temporarily and enter in, not adopt the religion, but try to feel and study the religion with a blank slate, and then you will get a better comprehension of the religion. That's why he said, when you do this, you will not say ridicule any religion, because you will be empathetic to the adherents of the religion. You will feel their sentiment. You will be with their emotions. You see? And therefore, and he criticized, this is probably the lack of, this is probably the misfortune in the Orientalist methodology of studying other religions, especially in anthropology, where they study the East as objects. You read Edward Said's Orientalism, the East is regarded as some mystical and aliens and yes, and you know, you can study like an object. But he said, when you are studying human beings, you cannot do like you are a scientist when you're studying atoms. There has to be some empathy, not sympathy, but empathy to understand their sentiments. And therefore, he said, when you do that, you will understand why Christians feel when they are eating the bread, they are as if the bread is the flesh of Jesus. And when they're drinking the wine, as if it is the blood of Jesus. You see? And I just watched the Passion of the Christ. It's an old movie. Huh? Is it? It's an old movie, but I just... You have to leave? Right? Mel Gibson. Oh, Mel Gibson is Jesus? Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, I just watched it. I mean, I only had the privilege to watch it, but I mean, I try to watch it with as a human being, you see, and how to feel the empathy and sentiments of the Christians. Of course, the cinematic is, I don't know, superb. Is it superb? Okay, acceptable.
It wasn't back then. Nowadays,
Right.
but it's based on one of the gospels. It's like the
Yeah.
gospel part. The other four are a little bit better.
Yeah, so traumatic. I mean, yeah. I mean, you will be very sympathized. Anyway, but what my point is that this element of emotions is part of our understanding of religion. We cannot be completely rational per se. There has to be some emotions appealing to this. And this is to Faruqi. Of course, this draw criticism even among the Muslim scholars. They said, how can you leave your Islamic worldview behind and you adopt a particular religion? And then he said, it's not that we are going to leave it forever. Even if you are a lifetime scholar of comparative religion, this is a temporary process. Whenever you done the research, you go back, you pray, you do zakah, you do the normal thing as a Muslim. But this is a temporary academic exercise so that you understand the religion better. This is probably one of the important thing in, of course, he discussed the 5 principles of theoretical high principles and then the 6 values of it. I strongly recommend you to read if you are into comparative religion studies. But in the short time that I have, probably I would like to discuss a bit about chapter 2, chapter 3, which is the remaining of this book, which deals about the advent of Christianity and its historical roots in the Jewish history at that time, which to his study of history, it is the worst, it is probably the worst point of morality that the Jews ever have in the history. And that's when Jesus was sent. Because Faruqi said, there is no other race in human history that is so intact and so particular about their race identity more than the Jews for more than 2,000 years. He said throughout history, there are 3 things that remain and changes. Number 1 is the land. The land throughout history, it remains, but it also changes a bit. Say for example, in Selangor, it has remained a land here for thousands of years, but it changes. Probably when a particular ruler came in, they built something. And then when the era passes, this building destroyed. And then they built tunnel. And then there's no water, they built waterway. And then things changes at the land, but the land is there. It persists throughout history. Number 2 is power. Power changes hands, right? Before this, it's Parameswara. And then it was given to particular sultan. And now it's Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim. And then probably next, I don't know. Okay, you become minister. So power changes hands, but power remains. In this land, there's always power from the ancient history until today. And number 3 is the people, the masyarakat. The people changes because I saw this new discovery, which was last year in Kedah. They discover Buddha statue, which is more than 1,200 years old in Lembah Bujang. And of course, you don't you don't take social media users comments because they will say, oh, this is Kerajaan Madani trying to say that we are Buddhist in the past. And I mean, this kind of criticism. What does that have any relationship with whoever government of the day? Anyway, but this discovery of Buddha statue in the past shows that the pribumi, the inhabitants of this land used to be Buddhist, and then Hindu, and then Muslim, and before that animist, pagans. So people changes, but the people still remain there, right? They are still there. But he said only the Jews, throughout these changes, they still intact, at least until the advent of Jesus Christ and the coming of the ministry. So and so this he put into context to emphasize that the Jews somehow very emphasize on their ethnicity, and this is what he termed as race apart. But I think it's just being polite. Sociological terminology today is racism, right? They are. I mean, you look into history. They deal with other people using different rule, but with them they use other rules. For example, even in the hadith or in the Quran, it's mentioned that they forbid among themselves usury, but to others they can have this usury, riba. Okay, among them you cannot qardul hasan, but among others you can do riba, and a lot of other things. And also because of that, the Prophet, when they do some crime, the Prophet understand them, and so he doesn't punish them using the Quran. He punish them using whatever mentioned in their scripture. So he said, okay, come here, whatever say in your scripture, and then he said, okay, in our scripture this is the punishment. Okay, so we punish according to that, because the Prophet knows that they really want to adhere to their own teaching, especially during the time of Jesus. It is the Pharisees, this one community, the literalists among the Jews, who very much adhere to the text, to the extent that they never listen to anyone else, not even to the Roman emperor, or even, I think at that time it's Pontius Pilate, the one that managed these affairs, the governor of Palestine at that time. Yeah.
At the time, it's not called Palestine. I remember.
At that time. Yeah, but I think he has a special place in Christianity because he shows some sympathy towards Jesus. I mean, he asked them many times, do you really want to crucify him? Do you really want to crucify him? He's already being punished enough. And they say, we want him to be crucified. And they are very stubborn, these rabbis. Yeah, the Jews.
You watch it in the film.
Yeah, I watched that in the film. And so it shows the character of Pontius Pilate at that time. But one more thing that Faruqi emphasized in this is how Jesus brought the teachings, which is opposite to what the Jews been preaching. Number one is how the emphasis is on human brotherhood and universality instead of exclusive ethnic, race emphasis. So when the shift happens, of course this has been strongly opposed by the rabbis, but Faruqi understand that. I mean, he said because is because of their survival. Throughout history, yes, they have been, you know, they have been through a lot of things. Basically, they have been persecuted, been punished by this ruler, that rulers, and therefore the spirit of survivability somehow transforms their creed and theology. That's why, according to Faruqi, even their principles of morals now is being put towards the survival of their own race. And the worst thing is that they don't even realize that this is happening. And therefore Jesus comes, and mind you, Jesus is a well-learned Jew. He was raised in a community, and he learned very well about the Torah, the Tanakh, the Old Testament. But according to him, this is not what the real message that God's trying to convey. And therefore, what he preaches, when he goes against them, they become disturbed and they oppose this. And number two is about, okay, now is brotherhood and then universality as opposed to ethnicity, ethnocentrism. Second is about ethics, which is previously the rabbis are very much emphasizing on the consequentialist ethics, which is your good or bad is judged upon the consequence of your actions. But Jesus said, look, there is more behind what you can see. There is more behind the zahir, which is your intention. Sometimes your intention is good. In fact, most of the people has good intention, but probably they do some accident and therefore the consequences is bad. And so he said, we also need to emphasize on intention rather than only highlighting on the consequences. So also this, of course, evoked the memory of between Kant and John Stuart Mill, or Jeremy Bentham from the utilitarian ethics, and Kant, the ontological ethics, which are probably the same debate throughout the history. Abdullah Darras also mentioned about this, and the latest is Wa'il Hallaq. He somehow tried to harmonize this. And I think also we discussed last time during Dr. From we discussed about Wa'il Hallaq. Yes, Dr. Haikal. I mean, last time he was here and we discussed about Abdurrahman Taha's ethics, current philosopher in Morocco. Okay, so in general, that's the idea of Faruqi's idea on comparative religions and his study of Christianity. Strongly recommend you to go through this and read. Of course, at-Tawhid is also very important. In fact, it is very difficult to summarize his ideas. Every sentences were stated succinctly, and it's just like that. It's just for you to quote, not to summarize. And with that, probably we can open to discussion.
Okay, terima kasih banyak kepada Hilman atas perkongsian tersebut, dan juga saya ingat satu poin yang penting dalam apa yang disebut oleh Hilman adalah tentang ethics dalam macam mana nak kita kata belajar dengan tentang agama lain, bahawa kita kena itulah menghormati disengagement. Dalam bahasa Melayu tak tahu. Seperanggangan tinggi perenggangan disengagement. Macam mana kita, dan ini sangat penting dalam konteks Malaysia di mana kita ni banyak agama. Dan memang walaupun kita cuti hari Wesak, cuti hari Deepavali, cuti hari Christmas, tapi percayalah dalam kalangan Islam mostly kita ignore apa benda yang berlaku di agama diorang. Yang mostly lah, bukan semua. Dan saya terfikir juga macam mana dengan orang Islam, adakah mereka betul-betul faham tentang agama, kenapa kita sambut raya puasa, raya haji, kita berpuasa di Ramadan, kita berzakat. Tapi mungkin orang Islam ni sebab dia minoriti, jadi dia ada insentif untuk kena tahu apa apa yang majoriti buat. Lagi-lagi majoriti ni pegang kuasa Perdana Menteri Raja Melayu. Jadi dia forced to know lah. Dan juga banyak benda tu ada di even saya ingat tu, saya dengar radio apa, radio RTM lah, radio Tamil. Tapi waktu maghrib, the Tamil radio RTM in maghrib they broadcast Islamic sermon, which is I never know that even Tamil radio has Islamic sermon. I thought
Azman also.
sermon ceramah. Yes, yeah. I thought it's Hindu, about Hindu something, but no, it's Islam.
In Tamil.
Yeah, in Tamil. But that's how that the dakwah in Islam in Indonesia is very itu di Masjid India kan. Jadi benda tu benda tentang agama Islam ni banyak di broadcast di Malaysia adalah, tapi tentang agama lain tak ada. Dan juga memang apa yang diajarkan oleh Ismail Al-Faruqi ni satu benda yang kita cuba hayati dan juga amalkan. Tanpa membuang masa, saya jemput juga, I invited to all. First of all, I invited even in the Facebook, if there is anyone that wanted to ask question or give comment, you can write in the comment. But I open in this room first, either your comment or your question to the panel about this topic today. InsyaAllah. Ada soalan ke? Any comment, Scott?
I guess so. We're coming up on, it's almost been 40 years since the past. It was a much different world, a much different context. So how do we, now we're in a world on fire. Palestine is even more on fire than the rest of the world. We have very radicalism of ideas, extremist beliefs and viewpoints and worldviews. How can we bring Ismail Al-Faruqi to today? What are the, I think both speakers can kind of give a bit of an idea of why he's important today, why some of his ideas can still be wise for us, and maybe even in the future. Like, I'm wondering if even that
Trial
could even be polyglots.
Yeah.
You have to start with the well, right? Wait. So, and then there's more than just religions, obviously. But now it's like, can you even have these dialogues because they're so extreme? Even if we talk about Christianity and Islam talking to one another, it's like, well, what brand, right? Because everything's so crazy. I guess is the best way to put it. So.
First of all, let us look at the dimension of Muslims and their, how do they perceive 40 years ago, we are in the era of post-colonialism, and now we are still in post-colonialism. But during the time, the fascination towards whatever comes from the West, is something that good to the Muslim world. So people are going, the tendency is towards the Western style, Western civilization, Western countries, Western, whatever come from the West is good. But now the pattern is changing. The rates of religiosity is increasing. But there come another problems when the ethno-religiosity is also increasing. So whenever we are talking about religious, yes, we tend to put ourselves as Muslims, and we are becoming proud of our identity as Muslims, but we tend to negate others. I mean, how do we perceive others? Previously, we have Islam is not part of our identity. Even if Islam will be, has been perceived as the element of puja, I mean, element of ritual. But nowadays, Islam has becoming a part and parcel of the life, lifestyle, part and parcel of life. That it is something that has been strived by Faruqi and also the Islamic movement. Islam as a way of life, and we are now in that situation. But another problems come. So what has been discussed by our brother just now about how do we having this kind of engagement with others is important, and it is still relevant. It is very relevant now. The relevance is coming now. It's a time after 40 years. Now we realize that what has been conveyed by Faruqi 40 years ago is really relevant to our our age nowadays. So he's advanced. During the time, nobody talk about this kind of engagement, Muslim and non-Muslim, or it has becoming one of the intellectual exercise per se. But now it is something that has to be programmed. Number two, this is the era of digital era. So nowadays, nobody manipulate or nobody can what we call it as control, control, monopolize the information. So everybody has equal measures and equal chances to gain information through digital, internet, etc. So because of that, it is important to have this kind of program strategically to ensure that the narrative, a part of our agenda through what has conveyed by Faruqi about Tawheed, about engagement, about Islamization of knowledge, about integration, takamul al-ma'rifi, etc. Need to be in the list when they going for searching in internet, etc. So to me, it's still relevant. It's much more relevant now if we compare with 40 years ago, 4 decades ago. And it's time to maybe engage with his thought seriously, by practical means. Maybe 4 decades ago we are still in terms of doing this kind of experiment, understanding it in the realms of academics per se, but now this is the time to make it as practical as possible.
Thank you very much, Fazril, for your comment. Is there anyone? Ismail?
Yeah, I can add a bit from what our brother just mentioned just now. Number one is that this idea of trilogue is not alien to our tradition. If you go to the during the Prophet's time in Sahifah Madinah, the Madinah Charter mentions clearly about the inclusivity of the Madinah constitution, so to speak. That includes also the Jews, the Christians, and even the Magians, those who worship or using fire as wasilah to worship God. And then the peak of Andalusia history, where you see cultural merging and interracial cooperation. And then you saw the same trend in the Ottoman, during the Ottoman era, where they incorporate different groups into administration, Of course, there are some political expediency towards that, but at least it does not, you know, it does not encourage the people to pit the people against each other. So, but what happened is that in between this history, there is what this being said just now about the rise of the right wings or ethno-religious centrism, which somehow give emphasis on identity consciousness, how we are different from one another. Okay, you can have your own identity and be conscious about it because it will make you confident and it is part of the history and lineage. But we have to also accept that we live as a human being in this world, what more in this interconnected world, chaotic and globalized world. Therefore, the need for dialogue that Faruqi has given guidelines to must continue even for the next 100 years, because this will continue to happen. The need for dialogue. In Malaysia, based on some chit chat with our friends, those who are doing this, they say the Malaysians are not very receptive towards this dialogue, interfaith dialogue, because they say that this is a way to dilute Islam or to dilute your identity. I say, how weak are we that because of dialogue our faith become diluted? Come on, we're not that weak.
They have the weak man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that you're going to convert or be converted when you have dialogue. It means you don't study your religion enough, and you don't study studying other religions. And so this dialogue has to continue. I think there is the committee under the Unity Ministry. I don't know.
PKA, tapi
what?
dulu lah pernah ada. I'm not sure currently is it still exist. Is it still exist? They can Harmony Committee tukar nama.
Harmony Committee. The fact that you ask, does it exist? So I mean, it signals that what are they doing, right? They have to, of course, they also need some support from the people, but enlightenment must continue. And then now the question is also about how to materialize this into projects, how to materialize this into concrete projects that you can see. So the establishment of the committee, and then you have also Unity Ministry. This Unity Ministry must be accountable. What are they doing? Are they going to talk only about the good news or the perpaduan of the people, but not going to address all the crises and the conflicts that's happening in social media especially? This has to be discussed as well. That's why in interfaith dialogue, we also propose, I mean, based on our chit-chat discussion during open house raya, we met these people, they say, we should go beyond, or in post-normal times, we should transcend this harmonious discussion about how we should understand each other with the Christian, the Buddhist, and the Hindus and the Muslims. But we should also discuss straight face about the issues concerning these different religions. For example, the issue of building temples. Okay, what is the issue? We need to discuss. Why we always hide this under the carpet? Yeah, but we need to discuss. You see, when we don't provide avenue and platform to discuss, the discuss will still happen in social media, which is chaotic. If you provide a proper platform, a civilized discussion, a civilized dialogue, you will come to a conclusion and policies. So dialogue, and then also this Unity Ministry must be accountable to us. What are the projects that they are currently doing to foster interracial cooperation and harmony? And I think based on some media interview, I'm not sure which minister. I know which, just don't want to mention. But he said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give my opinion on this because my name is Unity Minister. I'm going to talk about unity. I'm not going to talk about disunity. I hope you listen. But this is not the right way to answer to media and to the people. You see, you have to be responsible for this. You are unity ministry, you have to foster unity. We want to know what you do to address this disunity and chaotic among the people. And so basically that's my add-ons answers to Fazril, but probably we could also get some other opinions as well.
Silakan, ada yang tambah ke Emma, jadi Masa ada
Cuma nak tambah
silakan.
sikit je lah. Because I was one-sided story lah. One-sided story means macam nak cakap Because last week, saya ke festival BKL tu, and I meet with Dr. Faisal Terani lah, one of my supervisor, kawan pada first supervisor. So I sit with him and we talk about. And apa dia?
Tak sempat ambil autograph.
Habis tak sempat gambar dengan dia. Autograph dia sempat. So
Sempat dapat gambar.
I pun dapat gambar juga.
Okay.
So back to the story. Bila dengar story based on the Ismail al-Faruqi, actually, at least I'm more accept here than daripada pandangan nak cakap macam mana? How to say here, because I make a comparison, perbandingan between today dengan apa yang saya discusskan dengan Dr. Faisal hari tu. So the discussion between Dr. Faisal and today discussion, I think this is merely how to say here, dia macam lebih pursue me secara terbuka tau. Like I can accept this lebih open, and then how to say kita boleh rasa sincerity tu dengan cara lembut.
Apa beza?
Ha?
Apa beza?
Sebab okay lah, the way okay, this is my opinion, just opinion only lah. The language of Dr. Faisal tu, dia macam kasar, a little bit rough. Yeah, little bit rough.
What mean the novel?
The novel tu bunyi tu macam kasar, and then actually untuk seseorang yang jiwa dia sensitif tau, which means ada sesetengah terms words, dia tak boleh accept benda tu. Dia tak boleh accept. So when I come here today kan, so dia macam make me realize that actually the words, kita, how to say, kita belajar, we learn something that orang kata apa, berkias, berlapik, tidak perlu terlalu shootable lah. So for me, this is a very good discussion lah. This is really open to my eyes for the discussion.
Tapi itulah memang dia tengah promote
Apa dia?
cerpen dia yang
Ada lah.
mungkin laras bahasa dia sekarang.
She was saying that some elements in the novels are too explicit
Ya, betul.
and too straightforward.
Yeah.
And for her, it's what is your judgment? What is your verdict?
I mean like the language tu banyak macam terlalu, bagi I macam terlalu harsh, menikam sangat sometimes the words tu. So kadang kita betul, benda tu ada betul dia, ada salah dia, tapi it doesn't mean we as a human kita tak boleh nak terlalu
Kan kalau menikam ni
terlalu nak menikam diri sangat, betul. Tak perlu nak menikam diri, even though secara fizikal tak boleh, takkanlah dengan bahasa pun nak menikam juga. Kan? You can
I want to add on something, especially on the issues of dialogue, polylog. So the very principle of dialogue is actually knowing the essence and the meaning of dignity of man. So if you appreciate another person as man with all the traits, the quality of man that you have, it also the other people also acquire that qualities as you have, as you acquired, so that you'll be having this kind of harmonious dialogue, interaction between one another. So because of that, the really meaning of karamatul insan is very important. That is why in Quran, when God talk about the prophet, one of the traits of the Prophet is Prophet has been sent to the illiterate people. وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. And God has been sent to the illiterate people and been given, been taught about the words of God, and to be yuzakihim, to purify people, wa yu'allimuhumul kitab, and been taught the essence and also the what the word of God, the kitab, the books, and also hikmah. Hikmah has been translated as sunnah, the prophetic tradition, as well as the application of kitab. It means read the kitab and also read the application to guide them with the application. So because of that, how do the prophet perceive other people, the the mad'un? One, we know that Prophet Muhammad SAW, as well as all the prophets that has been sent from God to the people, to mankind, they have the quality of holy people, right? Holy person. God will recognize the prophet as the holy people, dimuliakan oleh Tuhan. Apa dimuliakan? Is honored, be honored, and he himself, the prophet himself, will mention that he's an honored people, like that, no? And we can see the interaction between his disciple with him, dimuliakan. How do they honor their prophet? But look what is the action of the prophet when they have this kind of interaction with people. Yes, they are people that has been put into a situation and martabat, into a stage of higher stage other than other people, if you compare with other people. But they interact with other people with kind, with compassion, not oppress them because I am the holier people than those, or I can oppress other people, like maybe some distortion that's happened in the worldview of the Jewish people, like that. So this is very important as Muslim, and Muslim that has increasing the rates of religiosity. So we have to be more conscious of what Prophet has shown us about the action of the religious people. So having this kind of enjoy the interaction with care and compassion, and having this kind of dialogue, and we know that sometimes when we start to have dialogue in terms of the creed of other religions, it will become some problems also. So because of that, our comparative religion dialogue among religious people will be directing towards services and same principles in the religions. But rarely we found the discussion seriously on the creeds. Because of that kind of problem, maybe expert pun tak berani nak cakap. That's the problem. Tapi itulah, that means the very principle of human dignity, karamatul insan, following the footsteps of the prophet in terms of interaction is very important lah. In Malaysia lah, because the rate of religiosity is increasing, so we have to increase the real way of following the footsteps of the Prophet.
Because it reminds me of, because you mentioned the question, might be yet another English translation of the Quran, right? Because we have various other ones, but well, first off, no translation is perfect, right? And especially in English, one of the most imperfect languages that's available. So I think that from time to time you have to do a bit of an update, right? So that's one of the big things. So another translation that just came out, literally just at the beginning of Ramadan, was the translation by Bruce Lawrence, and the guy who worked with him. I can't remember his name to help me right now. But the point of that was that, well, one of the, because the introduction alone is worth the price of the book and everything else, because they go into it and they basically say, well, I don't think I'm going to get it right. No one's going to get it right because it's, of course, a translation. But times have changed. We live in a new context, and all languages are colonizing in one way or another. So English, unlike other languages, it's patriarchal, it's gendered, and it evolves. All languages have to evolve if they're to survive. If a language doesn't evolve, it dies. And then we call it a dead language, and only, a few undergraduates will learn it, and that's about it. So, but there's this interesting, with the Bruce Lawrence translation, they bring in this notion of universalism, a greater understanding of the cosmos and astronomy, not astrology, and but also an understanding of how you can have plurality within unity, and unity within plurality. If God's all powerful, right, he can be both plural and one at the same time. So bringing in some of that, if we can, so the point of a newer translation from Bruce's perspective, at least, is to update it to how we speak nowadays, because the languages evolve naturally. And so, and I think adding to, harsh language, right? We just have to be receptive to that. I think that part of seeking truth is listening to all sides, even if they're very nasty and very even aggressive or attacking of some way. So, but there can be, the wise individual can pluck out the insights that are necessary from those sorts of dialogue. So the way we dialogue, and sometimes dialogue happens without words. I wish I brought Maya with me. I didn't think about this because we have Maya van Limput here, and she's an expert on polylog right now. And so she's looking at all of these things, and she, of course, works in multimedia. So she works in film and art and a variety of different styles. And so how can polylog even exist without people speaking? Maybe polylog is done, via and even, well, it can be done mentally, it can be done through pictures. Maybe two photographers have a discussion and there's no words exchanged, they just show their photos to one another, and that's how a dialogue can take place. I mean, the limits are, the sky's the limit as in regards to that, but I just thought I'd add those bits.
For your comment. I think, is there any other question? I don't think someone in Facebook is commenting, but there is comment from Sister Ada. Then she deleted it. That she said, she's an interesting point of view. She said that I think it's true that in Malaysia, especially Malaysia, we still have a lot of still afraid of talking about religion, especially other religion. But at the same time, we need also foundation to talk about this thing, because even in the context of, let's say, nation building, state building, even the idea of bangsa Malaysia, what is the meaning of citizenship, kerakyatan. I think a lot of people, some people that is extreme, that is still very much consider Chinese is not Malaysian enough, or Indian is not Malaysian enough, or they completely ignore Sabah and Sarawak people. I think this is even more basic. Even religion is about world, about something higher than that. Maybe because the foundation itself is still lacking. We only have prinsip rukun negara, and then currently we have rukun madani. We do not show what else in the future waiting for us. What else? What can we do to strengthen the foundation of the nation? And then maybe we can talk about bigger issue, civilizational, religious dialogue that can really, forward the world, the civilization in Malaysia, because Malaysia always talk about we wanted to be like Andalusia, La Convencia, and Baghdad, and something like that. I think, but there is a lot of things that still need to be settled in Malaysia. I think maybe I think I invited.
About the translation of Quran, the new one by, I just come across that in internet by Bruce Lawrence, and also Habib. And yes, we know. Yeah, I know Bruce Lawrence because he's one of the disciple of Marshall Hodgson, with the idea of cosmopolitan Islam, and also the Venture of Islam, 3 volumes of Venture of Islam by Marshall Hodgson. And this might be, we have to find the book. Still new this year, right? But as far as we know about Lawrence's writings, when he talked about Islam, he emphasized on the cosmopolitanism of Islam. Islam is not Arabs per se, Islam also is not about local. It has something to be inferred about the local aspect of Islam as well as the global aspect of Islam. That's why the term that has been used, coined by Marshall Hodgson, is Islamicate civilization. Not Islamic, not Islam. Ni tambah lagi satu. We add another terms of Islamization of knowledge. It's previously we had Islamization of knowledge. Then Islamicization of knowledge. This time Islamicatization of knowledge. Because the term Islamicate. So Lawrence talked about Islam in the perspective of Hodgson, when they tend not to put compartment to the civilization of Islam, because civilization is something that has been shared, or is now being shared by all mankind. And the history of civilization is history of humankind. I mean, history of all of us. It is not necessarily history of Western civilization just for the Western people. It's the history of the Islamic civilization is just for the Muslim people, but it is civilization of mankind. So that's why I think Lawrence will talk about Islam in this kind of interpretation. How do we perceive Islam as a man's civilization? It's not just for Muslims. But we have to find the interpretation, the new one, the translation of a Quran. So interesting lah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fazril. And I think, Hilman, is there any final thought?
Another thing to also consider, besides the aspects of trilogue and polylogue of Ismail Faruqi, is after 40 years is his major project, which is the Islamization of knowledge. After 40 years, probably is already long overdue, right, to assess this project. Previously, we talked about producing textbooks. Is it relevant now? I think one member of the board doesn't disagree with it. and also talking about Islamic university. Which university, and is it, what's the progress now? And also a lot of other things. And the basic thing which I remember Faruqi spoke about is to have this, what is this categorization? no, sorry, inventory. To have this inventory on books on different subjects. Say, for example, yeah. So if you want to Islamize science, for example, biology, you have to have a list of inventory of books on this. And any particular scholar who would like to do this Islamization must study this and produce his own thesis or synthesis or even antithesis towards the book. And but we haven't really do that. We haven't really do that. Why do I say? Because we cannot point to any scholar who did that. But of course, this we cannot blame anyone. This falls upon all of us as well, if we are to partake in this project. But this is the probably earliest steps to be taken before we can say with confidence that we has achieved significant success in this. So that probably for another topic, the success and failures of IOK, Islamization of knowledge. Next, probably Amirul. So yeah, so those are the things that also should be keep in mind. I mean, when we are talking about after Faruqi and what his legacy, right? So these are the things, and also we need to consider something beyond discussion on the level of philosophy. That has to continue, of course, but there has to be concrete projects as well. We need to see the tangible outcome of this, of whatever the fruits, whatever that we discuss. Okay, thank you. No? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Terima kasih banyak. Apa tajuknya? Please discuss with rector. Please discuss with the rector. Not tripartite. That issue. Okay, thank you very much for the panel and for all the participants in the room and also in the Facebook. Thank you very much for joining in the special talk in this our thinker. Inshallah, we will meet again to different special talk that will discuss another thinker. But next week we will continue with our regular ILMI, which is book discussion with Fikri, right?
Yes.
Fikri, what is the topic?
The heart and brain in classical Islamic thought.
Okay, is it the title of the book?
This master.
Oh, master thesis. Okay, never mind. But I think we will share with you all after this week. And then I also, on behalf of IIIT and maybe CPPFS, we invited all of you to come to welcome to Post-Normal Times exhibition, which is situated at Berjaya Times Square, level 10, not hotel, the mall. The mall, level 10, open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. right? Open every day, all is invited. So I think in the exhibition there's a lot more we can say exhibition and also information about Post-Normal Time, which is becoming some sort of national agenda, because even Prime Minister have talked about it a lot, and I think a lot of people are interested to know. And this exhibition is one creative way, to explain it instead of using seminar or just brochure. We see an exhibition which is more engaging and more interactive. Inshallah, I end here and I close with tasbih kafaratul us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.